All right. All right. Welcome back, everybody. What day is it? It's March something, 20th. Wow. Is this actually officially the first day of spring? Tomorrow? I thought it was the 21st, but some people say it's the 20th. Yeah, that's awesome. So that means our days are going to increase. Well, they already are.
Yes.
But from this point forward, we're at the midpoint. So now it gets longer and then it comes back around. So we're in the beginning of the swing toward the longer days and of course the warm weather. Yay. We're always happy for spring. Spring is a good time of year. It's when everything comes back to life. Birds are back out. The bunnies are back out. And the repairs begin for the homeowners out there. Yes. All right. Anyway, I digress. I wanted to talk about something tonight that I think is it's amazing we don't talk about. I don't know if it's assumed or not, but it's something we don't refer to often enough as the strategy for building the business, which is the single most effective strategy there is. And it's called taprooting. So I shared this conversation with Leo's team earlier tonight. So this is kind of a recap for Leo. But for those of you who have not had this conversation in the past, let me tell you, and feedback is welcome. Let me first of all explain what taprooting is for those of you who don't know. I'm going to use a visual because I have one. This is ancient, this PowerPoint. Let's see what I can show you here. Okay, so yeah, there we go. All right, so essentially a taproot is a leg being driven down versus a number of legs going wide. I don't think I show any other example here. So yeah, typically what happens is in the business, we always talk about width, sponsoring a lot of people in your width. And why that's important is because we just don't know where the leaders are. And of course, width is going to ensure that you're going to have a few key people on your front line, your legs, if you will. But when you're first getting started in this business, if you turn that sideways or vertical, you could find your leaders the same way, find that one or two solid leaders in a leg, and that leg will go to China. And then you'll have a business that is worth building width for. So this is one of the first things, and ignore the text here. I just want to show you the visual. Here we go. So taprooting is when you take it down, and it doesn't have to be limited to 3. And again, forget about the ranks here. I just want to give you the visual. What I mean by taproot is it's going down. So each time you sponsor somebody, and if you don't help that person sponsor somebody right away, their interest wanes. So we've got this thing that we're running against, this timeline of enthusiasm. Enthusiasm can be short-lived for somebody once they get into frustration, which, you know, they're going to get into. Everybody does, whether it's a frustration of the business or a frustration of the way people react to them or respond to them or lack of response, frustration around people not showing up at meetings, whatever. There's all kinds of frustrations associated with business ownership of any kind, certainly sales of any kind, if there's a lack of experience there. So the assumption here is we got a lot of people who don't have a big entrepreneurial background, and it's better that we assume they don't, because that way we have a wider audience to be able to offer Nikken as a possibility. I think it may have been last week's call. I'm not sure. No, it was a leadership call that I was on. If you consider maybe the Nikken opportunity as a 90-day project to help somebody become an entrepreneur, to transition from the E quadrant, which is the employee quadrant, all the way over to the B quadrant, which is the business owner quadrant, that is a shift in mind. It's not simply a matter of what business you're in. You can be in Nikken, have the potential of a B quadrant business with residual income and leadership development, but still operate only as an E quadrant business, meaning retail only. So to be clear about our definitions of what we mean by building a business is more so by understanding what the identity is within the business that we're referring to, because there's multiple identities within the Nikken business. You could be building a retail business that still constitutes building a business, but it's not specific to the context that may be referring to sponsoring people or building an organization of leaders. So we need to be more specific as we help people graduate from their life of an employee into their business life. And we don't have a lot of time to work with in order to ensure that we're going to keep them interested. So producing results very quickly is important to keep their enthusiasm going and to verify or validate for them that, in fact, this is a business that's doable. The fact that it's doable. Their first sale, that's a huge thing that should be rewarded, because it's called proof of concept. If they can prove that they are able to sell a Nikken product, then you've proven, and they've proven to themselves that can happen. So if it can happen once, it can happen twice and multiple times. The point is it can happen, and that you've proven that. Sponsoring somebody is the next thing. That's the transition from the E quadrant to the small business or the S quadrant. So sponsoring is the next piece of this. And this is where people obviously have a little bit more of a challenge, because there's more involved. There's more psychology involved. There's more skill sets involved. And this is where you as an A really got to get involved. Now, the taproot concept is not that I'm going to help you sponsor 10 people. That's not the taproot concept. Yes, ideally, you're going to sponsor 10 or more people in a very short period of time. But what I need to do in the short order, in the most immediate time frame, is produce a result that gets you and keeps you enthusiastic about the prospect of this business. And one of those surefire ways is to not only help you sponsor one person, but then help that person sponsor a person, and then help that person sponsor a person. And what you're creating is a vertical leg of excitement and what Dave Rolfe would refer to as vested interest. This creates this investment of interest, or this vested interest is the best word to say it, but it incentivizes the organization to become more productive. I'll give you an example. I sponsored a fellow years ago who was making a pile of money outside of Nikken. I mean, he was making about $70,000 a month in the publishing businesses that he had. So to produce a result that would get this person interested enough to actually start learning about the Nikken business, start to take ownership of the Nikken business, there had to be a big result on that happened. And of course, I'm talking about Marty Jeffrey. When we launched him, his first check in Nikken was 19,000. I forget the actual number now. Just over 19,000. I think it was 19,000 and change, whatever, 19,400, whatever it was. It was a big number. That was a big check. Now, for a guy who's making $70,000 a month, who's already making a lot of money, you have to understand what it took him to make those 70,000. How many years he had to build companies, how many people are employed in those companies, how much capital is at risk in those companies, all the expertise and the time and the blood, sweat equity that it took him to build up to a $70,000 check. For him to knock off a $19,000 check in his first 6 weeks of business, or first 6 weeks of learning about something, first four weeks of business, then that really speaks loud that, wow, what if he actually had command of this business? What if he actually understood this business as well as he did his other businesses? Where could he go with this? So producing a result that got his attention was my priority, because if I could get his attention, then he will become involved, more interested, more vested. take upon the greater responsibility and so forth. Now, of course, that's an exception. The person that I'm talking about, it's not every day we sponsor somebody who's got that kind of worth. But for the average person, they need a result. So we need to help them get a result and keep them interested long enough for them to actually figure this out, how to make this business work. And so the Taproot strategy actually serves both purposes. One is it creates for you a focus of activity that creates the vested interest for each of the people to stay interested. So for instance, I'm going to give you the for instances. On my screen, I have Lynn, then I have Mary Ellen, then I have Paul, then I have Sue, then I have Leo. Let's just say that's the pecking order. So I sponsor Lynn, and my first priority is to help Lynn sponsor Mary Ellen. So I say, hey, Lynn, let's have a get together at your place, and let's introduce 10 or 15 people to NECANN. And so we do that. Lynn gets to work. She gets the invitations out. I do the basics of how to do an invitation. Of course, there's some fundamentals, but she gets an event going. From that event, we get a lot of excitement, a few customers, maybe she sponsors Mary Ellen. Now, I need to now say, okay, Lynn, look, we got some customers. We've got a new consultant, proof of concept. The business works. Now I'm going to focus with Mary Ellen to launch Mary Ellen. Lynn, you need to go find your next person. So then I start with Mary Ellen. I say, Mary Ellen, why don't we do a get together at your place? Do exactly what Lynn did. Kickstart your business. Let's launch your business. Okay. So I go and do an event with Mary Ellen. Lynn may or may not be at that event. It's not important to me whether she is or she isn't. What is important is that Mary Ellen launches. And so now, same thing. Mary Ellen has a few customers. Maybe she sponsors somebody. Now, in that process, does that create more or less interest in Lynn?
None whatsoever.
Clearly more. And she gets excited because now she has a team member. Then what? Well, then I say, okay, Mary Ellen, you sponsored Paul. What you need to do, Mary Ellen, is go find some other people. Same idea. I'm going to work with Paul and help Paul launch. So, well, Paul, why don't we do that? Do what Mary Ellen did. We're going to launch you. And now Paul does the same, a customer to a person who joins. Now, let's say it's Sue. Say, Paul, what you need to do now is find somebody else. I'm going to work with Sue. And now if I'm doing this within a month's time, I've gone from Lynn to Mary Ellen to Paul to Sue, maybe even to Leo. Maybe I've been able to drive it down 5 deep. By doing that, by working and finding Leo, what do I have? I have Sue excited. But if I've got Sue excited, I've got Paul excited. If I've got Paul excited, I got Mary Ellen excited. And if I got Mary Ellen excited, I've got Lynn excited. So working to find Leo added to everybody's excitement. That's a really good use of my time. Because if all I did was focus on Lynn to sponsor the next person and Mary Ellen dries on the vine, there is no Paul, there is no Sue, and there is no Leo. But if I drive that leg down in the short time that I have, let's say I focus, that's my effort this month, is to create that leg under Lynn. Now what I have is a bunch of people who are excited and interested. Then maybe I focus on Leo and I say, okay, let me work with Leo. He seems like a pretty sharp guy. And I start working with Leo to really build some width. There's where I build my width, and not with Lynn. You might say, well, why wouldn't you do it with Lynn? Our compensation plan doesn't require that. But if I've got Leo pumping up some volume, the only way for Sue to really capitalize on that volume is to have another leg. Remember, in order to advance in rank to silver and above, you've got to have at least 2 working legs. So now the incentive for Sue to find her second leg is there, very much so. Same for Paul. Paul's got a great leg in Sue, thanks to Leo and his production. But if Paul doesn't find his second leg, he's going to miss out on going silver. Same for Mary Ellen. So now I have everybody looking for their second leg rather than me looking for their second leg. Everybody's now got a foot in the door, an interest in getting that additional things. So now I've got 5 working people instead of just me and 1 working person. That's vested interest. And that is the fastest way to create a result in someone's business. Now, if we started this early in the month, then remember a couple of weeks ago, a month ago, whatever it was, when I did the month-end strategy, it's probably a month ago, at least, we talked about what to do at the end of the month. And I referred to it as tic-tac-toe, that we can have so-and-so who does this, who does that, and creates that tic-tac-toe scenario. Well, now you have a real tic-tac-toe scenario because you've created it. You've created it, you've created the vested interest, and now there's an interest in people to close out the month and get things going. So for instance, let's say Leo's volume is closing in on silver. What does Sue need to get silver? She needs her outside leg volume, 1,500 points. Or is it 1,000? I guess it's at least 1,000 anyway. Paul, you need 1,000. Mary Ellen, you're going to need 1,000. Lynn, you're going to need 1,000. So now all of a sudden, everybody's got a reason, and it's a strong reason. That's vested interest. That's what I'm talking about in terms of taprooting. So taprooting is probably the quickest and easiest way to help somebody go silver, because it's not them trying to do it for themselves. It's them working through their downline, you working through their downline to help somebody down below. And then it pushes everybody up. Build the fire from below. But you have to have that taproot. Taproot is like the strongest root of a plant. It's that one root that drives straight down. So in our business, if you looked at my business, you'll find that my top leg is more than double the size of my second largest leg. In network marketing, that's the way it is. There's always that one super leg, that power leg, and then the next leg is maybe half of that leg. And then the next leg is maybe even half of that leg. Now, isn't that interesting? Think about Niken's compensation plan. Your primary leg has to be a certain amount of volume to get advanced to platinum, diamond, royal diamond, whatever it is. The primary leg is usually about 3 times the volume requirement for the secondary leg and for the third leg. So if you look at the way Niken structured the comp plan, it actually mirrors what really happens in real life. Let me just find out where that sound is coming from. So, so what we're talking about tonight right now is taprooting and the need for people to start doing this as a rule, because in network marketing, it is the way that creates the most activity, the most fire, the most reason for people to stay in and stay excited. So the sooner you can help somebody sponsor somebody, and then help that somebody sponsor somebody, and then help that somebody sponsor somebody, and then help that somebody sponsor somebody, now you've got a really clear focus, right? It really tells you exactly what am I doing. And now, because you're doing that, you're building the reason for the other person, the person above, to actually get involved, to actually start participating, to show up and to start doing the work, rather than you being the one who's doing all the work. You start getting the help that you need. So any questions about that? Does anybody have it? Yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Well, I like it to put numbers to it. So let's say people are going executive each time somebody gets sponsored, and then they go executive. So it's 1,500 plus another 1,500 underneath, plus another 1,500.
That's 4,500.
It's 4,500. That's why we got it to 6,000. But all these people need their second consultant. They're going to be very motivated to get that done if we've stacked it with 4 or 5 executives down. I can see that really happening. I mean, it's very motivating.
Now, let me be clear about something, though. You use the word stacked, and usually that word refers to something. That word refers to, let's say I got 10 prospects and they're all my prospects and I start putting one under the other.
No.
All my people. That's stacking. We don't encourage that.
No,
Well,
I didn't mean that, but I'm glad
okay.
we clarified that.
Yeah. So, but what we're doing now is we're empowering, we're helping somebody launch and get started, get that proof of concept, going back to that idea. If we can show them that it works once, then we have proof of concept. And so that becomes the focus, but don't leave it there. Keep driving the leg down, because what you're teeing up is a month finish that's going to be explosive. Sherry.
Well, I just was going to say, I think it's funny, Debbie's on here. We were just talking about this we had a little team call after my wellness stories. We were talking about rank advancement and how you leave money on the table. And I was saying, you don't need to worry about that until you have a lot of depth. And that's, of course, what you want to develop. And of course, that's what builds a strong business. So it's like at the same time you're building a strong business, you're also building the need to move up, because you don't want to you don't want to leave money on the table. So it was just so funny to jump on late after we just come off of that conversation. It's really kind of the same topic.
Yeah, I think the difference in this is that I'm going to send Debbie out to find her next person while I work with Debbie's frontline person to get that person a person. So it doesn't force Debbie to stay and work with me in the one leg. It's causing everybody, okay, we got one. I'll handle that one. Go get another. That's the key. That's the taproot. And then what happens is she's off finding the other. You're working with this one to find their first one. And then when you find their first one, you send them off to find another. And then you work with that one and find that person the first one. So you're driving the leg down. And that creates, you might say, well, why would they go find another one? There's going to be they just sponsored somebody. They're going to want to hatch that egg. And that's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
When they sit and try and hatch that egg, production stops because it's motivated by the wrong thing.
Yeah. I just said that too, Debbie. We're talking. I said, you know what? I said, the business is not fun when you're sitting there like a mama hen sitting on somebody waiting. That is like the least fun this business ever is, right, Debbie? I mean, this was like 10 minutes that was out of my mouth. So it's so much fun when you keep going and growing, and going in width, because then you're not worried. If somebody's not ready, they're not ready. Move on, come back and circle back and check on them. But it's so much more fun when you've got lots of things happening frontline and in depth, because then you get really clear on who you want to spend time with.
Yeah, and somewhere in that production, you're going to find a leader, a star.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and it's usually in our downline. It's usually in our depth. It's rare to find somebody that we sponsor is going to be that superstar, unless you're an absolute superstar recruiter, because it's like, you got to sponsor a lot of width to find a handful of really good ones, but you can't wait for that. What you want to do is drive a behavior that incentivizes everybody at the same time.
Right.
And that's what the taproot does.
Right. Everybody wins.
Everybody wins. Yes, Sue.
I just want to thank you. God meant for me to be here tonight, because what you just explained, I have to say, I was losing some of my excitement, enthusiasm, and listening to you this evening explaining that unfortunately makes me really excited to get back into it and really make it work. So thank you.
You're very welcome. My pleasure. Awesome. Good to hear. Anyone else? Yeah, Debbie.
Hello, everyone. Mike, I mean, like Sherry is saying, this is so right on with what we were talking about, because I was just talking about a deep root system. Now, I didn't know that term about taproot, but I was talking about driving down those roots deep so that when those winds of adversity come, you're not just, you don't break, you just bend, sway with it. So thank you for that. I appreciate that.
Good point. Great analogy. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else?
And show up for Seiko-kai because Debbie's going to share more of that story, right?
All right, awesome. Okay, so that's the details for Seiko Kai. Is it this weekend? Is it Saturday? It's this coming Saturday. At noon Eastern, I believe it's noon Eastern, 2 hours. It's funny that we haven't talked about this concept. We're dealing with a lot of moving parts, but I'm trying to be very strategic in what I'm informing you of, because right now we're going into business growth mode. We are in business growth mode. And so we covered the month end stretch, the tic-tac-toe, but that only works if you got something to tic-tac-toe. So that's why you've got to drive the leg down as a strategy. So you sponsor somebody and then taproot that leg, and you create a win for everybody and the incentive there, so that when it comes to month end, you're going to have the opportunity to do the tic-tac-toe, and you're going to see breaking silvers, executives, seniors, because that's what happens in that strategy. And then, of course, we're not saying don't go wide. Width is profitability. It's just, when do you do what? You personally, as a sponsor, as somebody who's helping to drive a business, drive a leg, drive it down. That's your first priority. Because if you can do that, you've created the vested interest, you've created the proof of concept, you've created a result that's worth duplicating. And now the width is what you're going to duplicate. Wide down, wide down, wide down. Anyone else? What other announcements do we have? We have, so Seiko Kai this Saturday, we have, still early in the month, but we do have an event in Montreal on the 8th of April. Is that sold out yet, Leo? Not yet? Okay, so that's still got ticket availability if you're looking to expand your business into the Montreal area. What was I going to say? Oh, yes. So there's something I shared. I'm not sure if I may have shared this. I did. I think I shared this on last week's call. The idea of doing if you're doing a live meeting, to get that audience more engaged in that meeting. I was referring to a card that I produced. Did I talk about this last week? Do you guys remember if I talked about this? I think I did. A wellness card. Did I talk about this?
I don't know. I
Wellness
wasn't on.
checklist? Okay, so last week's call, I did touch on this. Oh, yeah, I did, because we were talking about how to make your event really a great event. There are some things that just you need to do to make that event worth people to come to and wanting to come back to, but you want to make sure that they leave with a feeling. So there were things that we talked about that you can do to create a feeling, like the ambiance, music, like the professionalism of the setup, making sure you have water station or multiple waterfalls from your volunteers so that you can accommodate people drinking the water. Posters, banners. For those of you who are interested in banners, I have the PDFs, I guess they're the PS or PNG files that you can take to a print shop and get those pull-up banners that we have for each of the 5 pillars. If you've seen my events, you've seen those banners. So if you're looking to do that, if you get a poster made, that's one thing. They're just hard to carry. You can get the pull-up banners, the stands that stand up. They're like $200, $250 a piece. But they're going to last for years, and you're going to have a really nice and quick and easy setup that creates staging. Really nice. It's the 5 pillars. I just did a PowerPoint. I'm going to share with you guys. That is it's loops, and all it is images that says humans being more. These beautiful images and the caption humans being more, and it just cycles. So that while you're waiting for your event to start or your pauses or after, it's constantly doing something so that you've got a bit of a backdrop if you're using a PowerPoint presentation. So we're looking to beef up our presence and our meeting vibe so people feel like, man, this is a cool place, that these are professionals, and it gives them an impression, it gives them a feeling. There were other things that we talked about, but you can refer to last week's call. I want to bring up the checklist, because the idea of engagement, right? We want to create engagement. And there's nothing more engaging in an audience as if the audience is participating, if each member of the audience participates in some form of an exercise. So similarly, like HBM, where we ask people to give us a gauge on a scale of 1 to 5 or whatever. In this case, it's percentage wise. Where are you at? If 100% was the ideal health in any of these 5 categories, where are you at? Draw a number. And then you can actually ask the audience, because I'm going to do this in Montreal. I'm going to ask the audience for their top 2. What was the 2 areas that you needed most work with? What were the 2 areas of imbalance? And you know what's going to be most popular, right? What's going to come up as most popular is finances and body. So I'm going to say today's presentation, we're going to focus on those 2 areas. No, it's no coincidence that these are the most common things. And then the presentation works on those 2 pillars. So, but creating engagement, creating involvement, getting people to think about the things we want them to think about is really important. Like some of these questions could be related to, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the ultimate in sleep. What's your sleep like? When you wake up in the morning, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being supercharged, where are you at? So a person might say, oh, I sleep really great. And then they wake up and they're totally exhausted. So it's like, well, did you really? So it creates awareness. So these are really tools, simple tools, cost nothing to make. And yet it creates interaction. It creates connection with people. And this is what we need to do. We need to start doing things that create connection, because that's what people are missing. And if they feel connected to what we're doing, what we're about, they're going to be more interested in who we are and being a part of who we are.
Mike, do you have that posted someplace?
Which one?
The list, the check.
This?
So it's like wellness questions for people to gauge where they are.
Yeah, it is. What I did was I sent it to Leo, I believe. I can send it to you, Sherry. Or I can just put it on the chat.
Why don't you? Yeah, that'd be great.
It's just a scan. It's a scan of what I have. So it was just an idea, right? Just to share the idea. Let me just see if I have
We've done that before. Years ago, we did a 5 pillars question. And a wellness
well,
question.
it's going to be incorporated into the new PowerPoint where that question's asked in the presentation. So that's the time where you want to say, did you take a second? Take a second right now. Let's go ahead and do that right now. And so right then and there, you're connecting with them on the most salient thing. Why are we here? Leo, I sent it to you. Where do I send it to? By email?
Yes, thank you. Or WhatsApp.
Was it WhatsApp? I'm looking for it on WhatsApp and I can't find it. I sent it to you personally on WhatsApp?
I think so. I gotta see.
Yeah, I can't find it. Yeah, I don't know where I sent it. Maybe it was to the Quebec chat. Was it to the Quebec chat?
I send you back. I know I sent to the.
Oh, here it is. I found it.
You got it?
So let me just send this to the core consultant chat, and that way everybody can see it. There we go. So yeah. It's just, again, it's just thought provoking. You can obviously come up with a better version than this. But at least it's something that simple, easy to use, and creates that interface. All we want to do is get people thinking about the things we're going to be talking about. So this is really a great tool for even a one-on-one or a live event.
I think it could be actually done in a Zoom event too.
It could be. I mean, if you'd maybe want to share this with people, because you kind of want them to record their own answers, right? But the thing that maybe you don't go through all of them. You just go through the 5 pillar one. Maybe the question, you just reserve the interaction for the live audience on that 5 pillar. Let's go ahead and rate that right now. 10, 100% being, I'm 100% happy with where I'm at physically, healthy, 100% happy where I'm at mentally, emotionally, whatever. So you do that, and then you isolate, the 2 areas that needed the most help. And it's no surprise which ones will come up. Yeah, Paul.
Yeah, I have a question about events and just enrolling people. And so you've got a video called contacting and inviting.
Contact and
there's-
invite.
Yeah, contact and invite. And there's a whole process there that we go through with people. But what if we have an actual event also happening? We have Seiko Kai, I have Humans Being More in June. What is it still best to follow the contact and invite sequence, or to just ask for the event? Because yeah, what do you think about that?
Well, I don't use an event as an introduction. So
Okay,
for me, the
yes.
event is the second exposure. It's the verification, the validation. It's where they get to hear from other people and learn from other people. So for me, I never chose to use the event as a first exposure, because it's not personal for them. It's impersonal. It's for them
Yes.
to check something out that's more impersonal, unless it was an in-home. If it was an in-home, my home, or the person I'm launching, their home, then it's a personal invitation to somebody's home where they're going to learn some stuff. That's fine. I still believe that you increase the probability. So let's say there was the ideal, then there's the less ideal, and then there's the non-ideal way of approaching somebody. The direct is the ideal. The indirect is the less ideal, and the cold is the non-ideal. So the direct approach would be, I've got something I want to speak to you about. Before we get into that, let's have a quick conversation here. So then I'm going to use the contact and invite approach, where I identify what it is about that person that I really appreciate. I suggest what I believe about that person would be a fit for what it is that I'm going to share with them. And then I invite them to learn about what it is that I'm going to share, with the expectation that it may not be for them. Or it could be, if it is, maybe they can help me directly, maybe they can help me indirectly. So the contact and invite approach, in my opinion, is the most effective in terms of getting somebody to say, sure, let's have a conversation. Show me what you got. The indirect approach would be, Sherry, I know this is not for you. I'm looking for a particular person to work with and expand my business. Somebody who's naturally interested in health, prevention, and so forth. So now I'm going to describe what I'm after. And I'm going to ask Sherry, of all the people you know in the world, I'm not looking for all those people. I just want one. Of all the people, what one person comes to mind who is the most passionate, the most, entrepreneurial, the most sincere, the most health-oriented, whatever it is that I'm after. And then now Sherry might turn around and say, moi, me, in which case it's an indirect approach. But she might turn around and say, oh, I know exactly who you should be talking to. And that's great. So that's the indirect approach. Or it's, and then the cold one is, hey, I've got this meeting, you should come and check it out. And then they show up and they don't even know why they're there. They're just there because you invited them. And then they're coming into a meeting cold. Nobody knows why they're there. They don't know why they're there. And then all of a sudden, they're in this situation. It might work, it might not work. But I personally think that the invitation to a meeting is personal, and then the meeting can be whatever it is because it's informative. So the meeting is the information, what they're going to receive and get in terms of content, but the invitation is personal because you're inviting them to participate in life with you in this endeavor. You're not saying, I have something for you to run away with and go and make something of yourself. That's not what you're saying. You're saying, I have something for us we could do together and make something special happen. It's personal.
Yeah, so if you're going to be holding an event, you have to have enough people who've gone through this personal, who are already engaged enough that, you know, they're going to be ready. But what happens to some people is they're ready, but then they go and they use this cold approach. I'll come to this event, and then they wonder why people didn't come. Well, it's
They
because
didn't
there's a
establish the why.
process. Yeah, there's a process to go through before. There have to be enough people involved so that the event is going to work, so that people aren't scrambling. Oh, come to my event, come to this. Yeah.
Well, the event works if let's say you've got 10 people who are going to promote this event, and those 10 people invited 10 people the right way.
Yeah.
That's 100 people that's been invited. You're going to have at least 30 to 40 people show up. The rule of thirds. If you're expecting 100 to show up, somebody didn't explain to you there's a thing called the rule of thirds. I explain that to everybody always, so that there's, you know, if we have more than 30, that's great, but chances are we won't have more than 30, because that's just the way it is, even if they were sincerely interested in coming. So the invitation is not come to a meeting. The invitation is, I want to talk to you about something, getting involved with me directly or indirectly. And what I'd like to do to begin the process of informing you, if you're agreeable, is to invite you to this event that's taking place, where we're going to have a special presentation to get into the bones of this thing. But the presentation, the meeting, is the presentation of the information. If I don't have your permission to present the information, if we have not established a reason why you would be at all interested in investigating Nikan, why would you come to a meeting? Think about it. Why would you get in your car on a cold day or a wet day or whatever busy day, drive halfway across town for whatever time it takes you to do that, to sit in a meeting room that you don't know why you're there, and spend an hour or two or sometimes longer, and then you have to get back in your car and go across town and maybe even say no to somebody. You think people have the time these days to do that? Like, there was a time maybe when they had nothing better to do, and an evening out on the town, or an evening to go and check something out was fine. Nobody has that kind of time. Not today. So unless there's a real reason for them to show up, why would they? So the showing up is for them to learn something. Why they want to learn something is what has to be established before inviting them to learn it. Sherry.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that people have to, I mean, that first of all, boy, does that sound great to even think about having live events again. Love that. But yeah, I totally agree. The reason I raised my hand is because when you were talking about events and then you're talking about humans being more, I thought I would put that out here. We just had last weekend, not this last weekend, it's been a weekend since then, so a week and a half ago, we had a retreat form of humans being more. It's done in the Georgia mountains, and we have a new date for 2024. So if anybody's interested, if you hear anybody about it, if you'd love to do humans being more in a 3-day event, it's kind of funny because the first one we did was the last personal event, talking about personal events in 2020. It was March. It ended on the 15th, I think, of March. And the next day, the whole world kind of shut down. Certainly North America did. And then the next event that Nikan did that was in person was the second Humans Being More retreat, which was December of 21. So there haven't been too many. I'm hoping we're going to see lots more. But so we just did the third, and this will be the fourth one. Anyhow, it's April of 2024. So there'll be information posted out there, but it's a year away. But we're still.
It's a year away. Plenty of time to build for.
Plenty of time.
I mean, it's the kind of thing that you would want to maybe have a there's a name for it, destination event.
Key is not available.
You do a
Microsoft 2007 or above.
You do a destination event. So don't think about going. Think about having a team there. So
Absolutely.
that's how you want to start imagining. This is a bit of a digression. I don't know if it is, but I was watching a video from one of my friends, somebody who I follow. And And he was saying the new, and he was showing an older version of the Bible versus the King James version and some of the new ones. And the phrase that Jesus uses when he talks about whatsoever you ask for and you pray for, there's 2 lines missing. And he shows the 2 lines that are missing. And they're really important lines. You no doubt they're missing on purpose. But these lines essentially are for you to imagine yourself in the situation as though it already has happened, surrounded by the circumstances as though it's already played out. So when you understand that what he's giving you is exact instructions, infallible, exact instructions on how to manifest. So, you know, there's been gurus throughout time, and I don't know how you place him in your consciousness of who is this guy and what's the importance of this guy's words. But for me, he's the ultimate in terms of absolute truth. So if he says something, it's not open to interpretation. It is what he says. And so if he says, this is what you do, then this is what you do. It's not an interpretation. It's simply, that's the exercise. And the exercise is to imagine yourself as though that situation has already transpired. So imagine that. Those are the instructions. Now, every single guru who's ever come along since, who's been talking law of attraction, teaches this. They teach, it's not enough to think about it. You have to imagine it as though it already is. You have to wear the clothes and feel the weight of the clothes on your body as though you're wearing the clothes. And when you go into that state, then you are literally interfacing. Now, I can talk to you on this on a science level because there is absolute science behind this. And there's, believe me, I'm well researched in what the science is, but what you're literally doing is quantum leaping. You're going from one reality to another reality. You're actually moving your consciousness from one reality to another reality, because all realities are simultaneously overlapping. It's not about time. It's about consciousness. So these possibility fields, these possibilities are all happening simultaneously. But what you observe is where your consciousness is placed. It's like counting the cars that go by on the street. If I tell you to count all the cars that go by that are red, you'll count all the cars that go by are red. If I say how many of them were blue, you would know. Because you weren't counting the blue, even though there were blue and there were black and there were white. You weren't picking on that because you weren't focused on that. What you were holding in your mind's eye was the red cars, and that's what you saw. So you attract the number associated with the red cars. You didn't attract the number associated with the blue cars, even though they were there. That's the law of attraction at work. Everything is happening simultaneously. You don't see what you're not looking for. You see what you're looking for. Whether you're conscious of what you're looking for or not, that's all you see, what you are looking for. So start looking for and looking at what you want to see. And then you will see it. That's the law. And so I forget why we're talking about this, but I guess we're talking about this because if you're going to set a goal, any goal, then you need to start acting as though that goal has already been achieved. Who do I follow? I think it should be pretty obvious. Who do I follow? If you want a book to read, one of my favorite authors is Neville. Power of Awareness. In fact, I had lunch with Bob Proctor's wife this past week, and she gave me a photo or a couple of photos of the books that Bob had on his desk when he passed. He was working on a project on his next publication, on his next piece of work, and the very book that he had on his desk, one of them anyway, is the very book I'm talking about, Power of Awareness. So this is my favorite book. I have the exact same copy. No doubt he probably gave it to me. Anyway, so Neville is one of my favorite authors. And the power of awareness is the idea of what you place your focus on, your attention on, what you become aware of, same way of expressing that idea, is what you start to see in your consciousness, what you start to observe, the blue cars instead of the red cars. They're all there, but you're not going to see the red cars if you're looking for the blue cars. And so what do you want to see happening in your next 30 days, 90 days, 6 months, year? You need to see it first in your mind before you'll ever see it in the presence, in the physical. So start focusing on the act of seeing something. That's what meditation and prayer is all about. Most people don't know how to pray. They haven't got a clue. Prayer is not regurgitating words. It's imagining. It's about seeing something, imagining something. Okay, well, I think we're good. Paul, you have your hand up. Last comment.
I was just going to say that when you have that image in your mind, then that image informs how you interact with people. And that's the connection. It's absolutely connected, how we deal with people, what we ask based on that image, I think, anyway.
Yeah, for instance, if you held the image of yourself as someone who simply could not fail in building a large Nikan business, it was impossible for you to fail. It was inevitable that you would achieve the pinnacle of success in Nikan. It was just simply a matter of fact. How would you talk to your next prospect? What would be the energy in your voice? What would be the words that you would choose to speak? What would be your reaction to them and their choice of how they observe this? Would it impact you if they weren't interested? Yeah, it's called contemplative prayer. Exactly. So how would you be as a human being, and how would you be conducting your affairs in life if you were operating as though you were already the person you're seeking to become? Let that inform you. Let that, what you imagine to be the life you want to be living, inform you in everything you're doing, everything. Become that person. And as you become more and more, and by the way, the easiest way to become aware of what it's like to be that person is to find somebody who's living like the way you want to live, which is why coaches and mentors become relevant. If you can find somebody who can offer you real guidance because they actually know what it's like, they hold the energy of somebody who's living that way, then you will be informed by them, by their presence, by their words, by their thoughts. That's why it's important to read. Why we read other people's works. I don't read fiction for a reason. Fiction's fantasy and stuff like that, that's for entertainment. That's for entertainment. It's not for education. For education, I read the people who have walked in the steps that I want to walk in. So for me, everybody I read is kind of a mentor. I'm looking specifically to get into their mind and to experience their life or their circumstances, their situation from their point of view, so that I don't have to do it, but I can adopt it. I can absorb that consciousness. It's like an actor. Quite frankly, it's like a really good actor. These people who win Academy Awards, why do they win? What is it that we're seeing in their performance that is not being seen in somebody else's performance? It's the level through which they're able to channel that character.
Mm-hmm.
They can channel a character to such a degree that you really believe that they are that person. Mm-hmm. And they sometimes believe they are that person. There's been tons of stories about actors who go so far into their character, they lose tons of weight, they do all these things, and they live their character even when they're not on the set. They don't break character. Those are Academy Award performances because they are literally channeling that character. Right now, I'm watching a character, and the way this guy's channeling, I'm just floored. And the story is The Chosen. The movie series is The Chosen. You can see it on Netflix, the first season. You can just download the app, The Chosen, watch the entire thing. But the guy, Jonathan Rumi, who plays Jesus, wow, this guy gives me goosebumps. That guy's channeling. It's really cool. And that's what I'm talking about. We can all do that. We all do that. When you imagine, you know, your favorite actress, or you imagine you're tapping into their consciousness. Everything's connected. And so when you are imagining a version of yourself, you're tapping into the consciousness of that self. Even though it's your imagining, it is still a creation that is operating in the intellect and in the ethereal plane. You're tapping into that mind. And when you tap into that mind more often than not, then you will become that person.
Cool.
Anyways, it's time. So thanks for joining, everybody. Remember, some of this I'll just publish again as soon as I upload. And if you want to share this with somebody, please do. It's good stuff. I think I covered what I was going to cover. The checklist is on. Yeah. If anybody has any need for those roll-ups, those printable roll-ups, the 5 pillars, send me a text message on WhatsApp or wherever you can get a hold of me so I can give you access to it. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thanks.
You too. Thanks, Mike.
Good night.
Thank you.
Not
Thank you.
everyone, thanks.